No government on earth has paid off its debt in your lifetime. Not one. And yet none of them have collapsed under it either. That should confuse you. The United States owes over $34 trillion. Japan's debt is more than double the size of its entire economy. And every year, instead of shrinking, these numbers grow. No emergency meetings, no panic in the streets, just more debt quietly added, like nobody's watching. So either every government on the planet is secretly broke, or they found a way to make debt disappear without ever paying it back. They have. And once you see how, you'll never look at a national debt chart the same way again. Let's rewind for a second. Why does this even matter right now? Because interest payments on government debt are becoming one of the biggest expenses many countries face. The US now spends more paying interest on its debt than it does on its entire military. Let that sit for a second. Not roads, not schools, not defense, just interest on money already spent years ago. If this debt actually had to be repaid the way your credit card does, most modern economies would already be insolvent. So something else is going on. Something most people never get taught. Here's how it actually works. Step 1. Governments don't pay off debt. They roll it over. When a bond matures, say a 10-year government bond, the government doesn't scramble to find the cash to pay it back. It simply issues new debt to cover the old debt. Old loan gets replaced by a new loan. Forever. Imagine you had a loan that never actually needed repaying, only refinancing, again and again, decade after decade. That's not a metaphor. That's literally the mechanism. Step 2. Inflation quietly shrinks the debt for them. This is the part nobody explains well. Debt is fixed in number, but money loses value over time. So if a government owes $30 trillion today, and inflation runs at just 3% a year, in real terms, that debt is worth less every single year, without a single payment being made. It's like owing your friend $100, but agreeing to pay them back in 10 years, knowing that $100 will buy noticeably less by then. Technically, you paid the number. Practically, you paid less value than you borrowed. Governments benefit from this more than almost anyone else in the economy. They are structurally the world's biggest debtors. And inflation is the tool that quietly favors debtors over lenders. Step 3. Economic growth outruns the debt. This is the part central banks and treasury departments actually want you to believe. And to be fair, if an economy grows faster than its debt grows, the debt becomes smaller relative to the whole, not paid off, just diluted, like adding water to a drink that's too strong, without removing any of the alcohol. So 3 tools: rolling debt forward, letting inflation erode it, hoping growth outpaces it. None of these involve actually repaying the money. Now here's the uncomfortable math. This system only works as long as lenders keep believing the government will make good on new debt. The moment that trust cracks, the whole mechanism seizes up. You saw a glimpse of this in the UK in 2022, when a single mini-budget spooked bond market so badly that borrowing costs spiked overnight and a prime minister lost her job in under 2 months. Not because taxes were too high, because the market briefly stopped believing the story. That's the quiet threat sitting underneath all of this. This entire system is not built on mathematics, it's built on confidence. And confidence, unlike debt, cannot be rolled over indefinitely. Let's talk hype versus reality for a second. The hype? National debt doesn't matter, because governments aren't like households. They can just print or borrow forever. The reality? They can, until the cost of borrowing rises faster than the economy can absorb it. When interest rates climb, rolling debt over gets more expensive. The US, for example, now refinances trillions of dollars of debt at rates far higher than a few years ago. That's not free. Someone pays for it. Increasingly, that someone is future taxpayers, through higher taxes, reduced services, or a currency that buys less than it used to. The system doesn't erase debt. It redistributes who feels the pain and delays when they feel it. That's the part that should genuinely unsettle you. This isn't a magic trick. From today's decision makers to tomorrow's citizens, from people who benefit from spending now to people who inherit the bill later, in a form disguised as inflation, currency weakness, or slower wage growth. Quiet costs, invisible on any receipt. There's a strange irony here too. Every country criticizes the others for reckless borrowing, while doing almost exactly the same thing internally. Politicians campaign against debt, then get elected, and keep the machine running, because the machine is what keeps economies from freezing overnight. Nobody wants to be the one who stops rolling the debt forward. It would mean admitting the bill has to be paid by someone alive right now. Now zoom out. This system has worked for decades because growth was reliable enough and trust was strong enough to keep the wheels spinning. But that's not guaranteed forever. Aging populations mean fewer future workers to grow the economy that's supposed to outrun the debt. Higher, long-term interest rates mean rolling debt over costs more than it used to. And rising global tension means fewer countries are willing to blindly trust each other's paper promises the way they once did. So the machine still runs, but it's running under more strain than most people realize, dressed up in calm language like sustainable debt levels and fiscal headroom, phrases designed to sound boring enough that nobody asks the real question. Which is this: if no government actually pays off its debt, only reshuffles it, shrinks it with inflation, or outgrows it with growth that isn't guaranteed, then the debt was never really the risk everyone thinks it is. The real risk is the day the world stops believing the story. And when that day comes, it won't announce itself in a headline about debt. It'll show up quietly, in a bond auction that doesn't go as planned, in a currency that suddenly weakens overnight, in an interest rate that jumps for no obvious reason. By the time most people notice, it will already be happening. So the next time someone tells you a government's debt doesn't matter because it can just borrow forever, ask them one simple question: forever, according to who?